Hieronymous seemed to recover a little bit after that, although he was still weak. He was able to talk again, although his muscles were still fatigued from disuse, and it took him considerable effort to sit up for long periods of time. Standing was off the table for now, and I wondered how long it would take for his physical body to heal. I didn't want to even try to create any sort of timeline for his state of mind. After it was clear that he was able to keep water down, I asked Mariette to make him some clear broth for him. After she brought it back, I also asked her to keep word of Lord Grabiner's return to herself for now. I wasn't sure why, but I still wasn't completely sure that Hieronymous wouldn't lapse into another sleep spell. Maybe it was just my own fear, but Hieronymous was also in no shape to continue his Viscount duties for a long while yet. We sit in silence as I sit by his bedside. I have him propped up on pillows with his back against the wall while I slowly spoon him soup, occasionally helping him swallow. "How is school?" Hieronymous asks at length. "How have your studies been progressing?" "I've been here taking care of you," I reply immediately. I just keep my eyes trained from the bowl to his lips, from the bowl to his lips. Inside, I feel hollow, almost like a robot. "Tori, tell me about Violet," I say suddenly. If I really did feel this numb and detached, it would probably hurt less to hear it now. He hesitates, staring me down. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," I reply. "You've never told me anything about your past or why you decided to run away together." "I didn't tell you because it's not a story that needs repeating, Tori," he says quietly. I just stare at him, waiting. "I don't want you to think less of me." "That's hard to do at the moment," I reply. My face is almost expressionless, and Hieronymous can't hide his concern. "If I don't tell you, you'll leave, won't you?" he asks. I just shrug, and Hieronymous seems to wrestle with himself for a few moments. "If you want to fix things between us, start by telling me the truth," I say gently, and this seems to get his attention as he lets out a long breath and seems to steady himself. "All right, then. I met her at school. She was very smart and very popular. She would always bully me for being the studious one, the one that never had any fun, the one who always had his nose in a book. After we had been partnered up for a class assignment together, I could tell that she was very passionate about changing the rules to how wild seeds were treated, and she could tell that I wasn't as pompous and cold as most people suspected. I don't know when I realized I had a crush on her. I asked her out, and she turned me down. Several times. She had a rotating string of boyfriends, and after one particular bad breakup, she decided to give me a chance. Things were good for the first few months. We hardly fought. Then, she discovered that she was pregnant. Just like at Iris Academy, she could not stay in school while she was pregnant, nor would they allow her to terminate the pregnancy. They would wipe her mind of her magic and her memories, and she would go out into the world to raise her child, our child, as a single mother. I offered to marry her, but she told me she would rather lose her mind than have to perform the duties of a viscountess and raise her child in that kind of life. I deliberated losing my memories along with her, but my father would never have allowed that to happen, and so we made a plan to run away together. We did. We left the school and entered the other world. We figured it would be more difficult for them to track us there. But she was a wild seed girl, young and pregnant and vulnerable. She didn't perform her wards correctly because she didn't know how to perform them. She knew how to perform wards to protect herself against the dangers of the other world, but she didn't know the proper wards to protect an unborn child. Neither did I. It wasn't something they taught us, and it wasn't something that we had even considered until it was too late. Suffice it to say, we never stood a chance. One night, we were overwhelmed by goblins. When they recognized my noble rank, they allowed me to send a ransom to my father. Unfortunately, just before I left, I sent him a long letter admonishing him for his years of neglect, telling him that he was dead to me and that I never wanted to see or hear from him ever again. I had made it clear that I turned my back on him and the future he had planned for me, so he turned his back on me. When it was clear they were not going to receive any ransom, they killed her right in front of me. That was the final straw that caused me to snap and find the strength to fight back. I barely made it out alive, but I was able to take her body back home with me. My father did his best to cover up what really happened, and I escaped to America to try to hide my shame and atone for my mistakes. I think you know the rest. I just stare at the floor next to the bed. Suddenly, it made a lot more sense why Hieronymous spent over a decade mourning her. It wasn't just the fact that she had died, but the circumstances surrounding her death had partially been his fault. She hadn't just been his girlfriend. She had potentially been the mother of his child, and I could understand why Hieronymous would decide that he never wanted to enter into another relationship after that. Well, at least until he met me, for some reason. I still wasn't sure what it was about me that he was drawn to, but that wasn't one of my most pressing concerns at the moment. You told me I was your first, I say quietly. I know, he says quickly. I know, Tori, and I'm sorry. I had said it without thinking, and it wasn't the sort of thing that I could just take back. I just meant that I was intimate with you in ways that I never was with her. I was only with her a handful of times, and they were all very brief. I was a teenage boy, Tori. I didn't know what I was doing, and the experience probably wasn't very enjoyable for either of us. I don't really know what he's trying to say, but he keeps going. Honestly, it might not have even been mine. Thinking back, she had a lot of boyfriends. She was with someone else right before she was with me. It might not have even been mine. Stop talking. Hieronymous shuts his mouth immediately. I don't know why he's trying to besmirch her now. Maybe Violet screwed around as much as Pastel did, and the child really wasn't his. Maybe he was only saying it to try to make me feel better. It didn't matter. This wasn't something that an apology could fix. If anything, I almost want to try to make it hurt worse. For some reason, I want to hate him for this. Maybe I just want to hate him so I could feel something other than this creeping sense of numbness that seems to have overtaken me. You were intimate with her in the dream, weren't you? I ask, still not looking at him. Before I remembered you, he says quickly, almost desperately. Once I remembered you, I didn't even touch her. I don't think he's lying, but he seems desperate to make me believe him as he keeps going. I remember waking up and looking at books. There was something there, something important. I still don't know what it was I was supposed to be researching, but I pored over those books every morning. Then I went into the kitchen. We ate breakfast, and then we would work in the garden and spend time together as a family until it was time to go to bed. Sounds like a nice, happy life, I murmur under my breath, and this seems to get his attention. It was boring, he snaps at me. It was the same thing, day after day after day. If hell is monotony, then that was hell. I don't know how long I was there before I realized that the reality that was presented to me wasn't real, but the more I remembered you, the more I did everything I could to try to escape. Okay, I say. My voice sounds almost dismissive, and I can see Hieronymous's frantic look shift to one of anger, and I quickly set the tray down on the table lest he try to throw it across the room. Okay, he asks darkly. Do you even know what I had to do to get back to you? Do you have any fucking idea? No, I reply simply, but I can't help but get to my feet as I look down at him. There's something dark and almost deranged brewing behind his eyes, like the wrath of Professor Grabiner amplified to 1,000. I fucking killed myself for you, he snarls as his hands clench into fists by his side. I tried at least 100 different ways and none of them worked. I was so desperate to make it back to you. I thought that you must be beside yourself without me here. I was so determined to do anything, absolutely anything, to make it back to you. I killed her. I killed Violet. I killed the kids, and I just stared at their bodies, hoping that I would finally wake up. No, it wasn't until I finally set myself on fire that I was able to break free of that prison once and for bloody all. Do you realize what that feels like, Tori? To set yourself on fire? To have every single molecule of your skin screaming with pain? Or what it feels like to try to drown yourself? To try to hold your head underwater while your legs kick with the frantic struggle to cling to life? Do you know how much suffering I forced myself to endure because I was so terrified that I would one day wake up and you would be gone? You couldn't, in your wildest daydreams, ever imagine the misery and the pain that I felt as I tortured myself, all with the blind hope that I would one day wake up beside you. His shoulders are heaving in anger, and I just stare at him. I'm starting to feel something else now, but this is fear. This is dread. The person in bed before me wasn't Hieronymous. I remember when Commander Draxon warned me that people didn't come back as themselves, and this was not sweet, gentle Hieronymous. Had he really killed his family to try to come back to me? Had he really killed himself? How much pain did he force himself to suffer through to try to wake up? Hieronymus's shoulders are still heaving now, but his emotions shift, and it looks like he's about to cry. Please don't pull away from me. He looks like he's almost begging now. You're right. I could have stayed there with Violet and not put myself through that, but I love you, Tori. I chose you. I'd rather have a life with you filled with ups and downs as long as you're right there experiencing them with me. I know I lied to you, Tori, but you're the only one I want to be with. I do wish you were the only one I was ever with, and I mean that, Tori. I love you, I promise you. I will never leave you, please. I love you, Tori. There was that word again. The promise. That was such a dangerous word to use, especially in the abstract, but I can't even open my mouth to speak. Please don't leave me, Tori, he begs as he begins to cry in earnest. Please. Please, I can't lose you. He makes a desperate lunge for me, and I quickly sit down beside him on the bed so he doesn't hurt himself. He buries his face in my lap as he sobs, loud and long, wrapping his arms around my waist like a child. I just sit there, staring at the same spot on the floor, smoothing back his hair in slow, rhythmic motions. I don't say anything. I don't tell him that it's going to be okay. I don't assure him that I still love him. Because the truth is, I don't know if I do. I don't know if I can. Hieronymus was always so competent and composed, and now he was bawling and blubbering like a toddler. I had never seen him this desperate before. Hell, I had never even seen him cry before. Was this just the lingering after effects of the spell? Or was this new, anxious, nervous wreck of a man really who he was now? And would I still be able to stay with him if he was? I wanted to be by his side. I wanted to support him. I understood that he was hurting right now, but I wanted to be married to Hieronymus. I loved Hieronymus. But the man sobbing in my lap felt like a stranger, and I wasn't sure what I could do to help someone I didn't know.